For lesson 5, we are going to start talking about colons and semicolons. Okay, so both colons and semicolons are used to connect clauses in a sentence. A semicolon is used to join two independent clauses that are closely related. So remember, that would mean two clauses that could stand on their own. So they both would have a subject and verb, right? And they can stand on their own, but they're related to one another, so you can actually connect them using a semicolon, okay? They also can be used to separate list items, okay? So like if I had list items, but they were phrases, maybe list phrases instead of just a single item, I might want to use semicolons to separate it rather than commas, because it could get confusing because there's so many words in the phrase. And then colons are join two independent clauses as well, okay? But colons, the first clause will introduce the second clause. So there's a little bit of difference there. The semicolon will join the two clauses that are closely related, but the colon, that first clause, introduces that second clause. So kind of lets you know what that second clause is going to be about. The second clause will clarify that first clause. Okay, so they have to be related to one another as well. They can be used to introduce lists or a series of something, okay? Don't forget Grammarly, Google Docs, Word, they all check your conventions for you. Make sure you're using that tool. Take advantage of it, guys. All right, we're going to go ahead and watch a couple of videos. One will be on the colon as a separator, and one will be on an introduction of the semicolon.
Hello, grammarians. So today we're going to talk about the third and final function of the colon. So this final function of the colon is that it can be used as a separator. So it might sound like we're talking about the comma again, right? The comma separates elements of a sentence, but the colon does it in kind of a different way. So let's look at some examples. So one common use of the colon as a separator is in titles. So you can have two separate parts of the title, or like a title and a subtitle for a book or a movie or a TV show, and there will be a colon in between them. We can have something like Bear Man, Adventures in Alaska. Another common use of the colon as a separator is in citations from a book or a poem, and pretty often the Bible. For example, we can use it to separate the number of a Bible chapter from the number of the verse. If we want to reference 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4, we can write it like 1 Corinthians 13, 4. Finally, we can use the colon to separate the hour from the minutes in the time of day. If I want to tell someone what time it is, I can say, it is now 10:09 a.m. And between the 10, which is the hour of the day, and 09, which is the minutes, we put a colon. So that's how the colon works as a separator. We can use it in titles, citations, and times. You can learn anything. Page out. Hello, grammarians. In this video, I'm going to tell you about a piece of punctuation called the semicolon, which basically looks like a comma with a period on top of it. The semicolon has a few uses, but the basic sort of standard use is to link two closely related ideas that can stand on their own as individual sentences. So that might sound a little weird. You think there's two individual sentences, so they just have a period in between them. Why do they need to be linked? Well, let's look at an example, and I'll show you what I mean. I'm a big fan of roller coasters, but if I weren't, I could say something like, I don't want to ride the Mega Sky Coaster. I'm afraid of heights, and that ride sounds terrifying. Now, you notice we have a semicolon here in between these parts, but let's take a step back and just put a period here for a second. So now we have, I don't want to ride the Mega Sky Coaster, period. I'm afraid of heights, and that ride sounds terrifying, exclamation point. These can work on their own as different sentences, but they're so closely tied together. You know, I say, I don't want to ride the Mega Sky Coaster. It's sort of telling us the backstory as to why I don't want to ride it. So we can use a semicolon in this instance to sort of tie the two sentences together into one. Now, we can't go around tying every sentence to each other. We can't have everything just connected with a whole bunch of semicolons. It works in this case because these clauses are sharing such similar information. In this sentence, the two clauses that are directly connected are both independent clauses. This makes sense because the semicolon's job is to connect things that can stand on their own as sentences. But a sentence isn't always just independent clause by itself. One example of this would be, I want to get a pet turtle, semicolon. However, I think it might scare my baby brother. This is an independent clause, and so is this, but the however in between the two of them can make things a little bit confusing. That's why it's important to note that you can have a semicolon followed by an introductory adverb or a transitional phrase. It doesn't just have to be independent clause, semicolon, independent clause, period. You can have other clauses and phrases and words in there, as long as the things that you're linking together can stand on their own as individual sentences. There's another place we can use semicolons, which is in a complex list. In this case, it's called a super comma, but we're going to get to that in another video. So for now, this is how you use a semicolon to link parts of a sentence. If the words to the left and the words to the right of the semicolon can stand as individual sentences with a period in between them, you can put a semicolon there instead. You can learn anything, page out.